Siân Brown is Welsh, Irish, British, currently living in Cork City in Southern Ireland. She's a vegan baker, a sugar paste artist, a writer, artist, musician, a singer-songwriter, a knitter, thinker, and meditator. Siân is also a qualified music therapist and sound healer and is looking forward to starting a Master's of Science in Consciousness, Spirituality, and Transpersonal Psychology in September. She's looking forward to adding songs about consciousness, veganism, and ecofeminism to her collection of original music. And thanks so much for taking the time today, Siân.
Oh, thanks for asking me. I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks.
Absolutely, for sure. And so I want to hear your journey to veganism. How did that happen for you?
Okay, so I've been vegan for about 8 years now, and it was about March 2013 that I had already been vegetarian for 10 years solidly. And even before that, I was a vegetarian off and on during my teens. So after 10 years of vegetarianism, I began working in this kind of after school club because I have a childcare qualification and I was in between albums and creative stuff. So I worked there for about 2 years, and the woman who owned the play school was vegan. So I'd never met any vegan in real life before. So that really kind of made me rethink everything. And because I'd been vegetarian for so long, I really kind of delved into all the documentaries, and I kind of planned to go vegan for Lent. Now, I'm not religious, and it's just Ireland is a very Catholic country, and Lent is, when I was growing up anyway, Lent was a big thing and everybody gave up something. So Lent was coming up and I just thought, well, I'm just going to go vegan for Lent and see how that goes. And I prepped myself by watching all the documentaries, and Earthlings specifically was the documentary that just made me bawl my eyes out. And yeah, and going through all the different the poultry and fish and all the different industries of meat and dairy and all that.
The elephant that really got me in that one with the elephant, yeah, and just the head space, right? The psychology of it. I think when we're vegetarian, we don't. It's a different level, and it's easy to get stuck in that. Oh, this is an okay place. This is okay, and then the Earthlings just kind of goes, whoa, hang on.
Yeah, because as a vegetarian, I thought, oh, they're getting milk taken from them and they're getting eggs taken from them, but they're probably taken care of really well because, they're not going to mistreat animals that they want to get stuff from. But then when I saw Earthlings,
Right.
and I saw how they were treated in the egg and dairy industry, and I was like, that's worse than the meat industry. What? And I really bawled my eyes out. I really it really upset me. So I went vegan overnight, and I did it for 40 days, and actually I never went back. And during the time of Lent, of the 40 days, like my mental health seemed easier to manage because I've had a strange life, and I would have I have a tendency to go up and down with my mental health, and I felt like that was very easy to manage. I dropped a lot of excess weight. I was always quite I was an obese teenager, and I was always quite a podgy person, and I just dropped all the excess weight. I felt like I had loads of energy. I felt really just the healthiest and the fittest I've ever felt. So it was just a no-brainer. I just by the end of this Lent, I was just like, no, that's me. I'm vegan. That's it. I'm vegan. And ever since, and that was March 2013, and I've been vegan ever since. Just never looked back after going vegan. Yeah, so
That's wonderful. And is there a community in Cork to support veganism?
yeah, Cork is really good for vegans. There's a lot of vegan, a lot of like nearly every restaurant has a vegan option. There's a lot of specifically vegan food places open. There are lots of groups on Facebook for Cork vegans, Irish vegans, and they're all around the country. It's a great country for veganism, and Cork City especially is really good for vegan food and vegan meetups. Yeah.
Awesome.
Although
Yeah.
it is now, but like 8 years ago when I went vegan, it was, yeah, the food wasn't there. The food really wasn't there 8 years ago, but I learned how to do a lot of stuff myself. I did lots of things like make my own seitan and make my own vegan cheese and stuff. But it's really caught up, really in the last 4, about 4 years. It's really caught up with the food side of things.
Cool.
But great communities here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, much the same here. I think just the last 3 or 4 years, it's really, and hopefully, we're carrying on in that direction for everyone's sake, right? And so, I just want to mention that you went kind of viral with your vegan meringue cooking recipe online. Hey.
Oh, well, it's got 23,000 views, which is ridiculous, really. So I did a vegan meringue video, and it's just really popular. But it's just showing how to make meringues out of chickpea water, aquafaba.
Amazing.
So you don't need to take anything from anybody. You just need to get water from chickpeas, I wonder who came up with that. I wonder who found out that chickpea water could be used for so many things. But
right, or wheat gluten for faux meat products, right? Yeah, we are creative individuals, that's for sure. And have you ever had that many hits on your music videos?
No.
Isn't that crazy? Because you're an amazing, amazing musician. And I'm wondering, how has this shift to veganism influenced your music?
Well, I have done a vegan song as part of another project, not my solo stuff, as part of a project that I have with my husband called Lamb Dancer. And I did a vegan song for that, and that was on our first album. And I suppose, like, going forward, my next album, I want to be very heavy with ecofeminism and veganism and all that kind of stuff. It hasn't really, because I've had a lot, as I said, I've had a strange life, so I've had a lot to get out. And so the veganism stuff hasn't really come into it much yet, but I do plan on bringing it in for the next album.
Okay, let's talk about the ecofeminism a little bit, because that's definitely an area of interest for me as well. And the idea of being a feminist and honoring the sacred feminism really aligns with veganism, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. So what ecofeminism is to me is a branch of feminism that looks at the connection between the oppression of women and the domination of nature. So ecofeminism believes that the same mindset that leads to gender-based violence and women's oppression leads to racism, sexism, homophobia, and environmental damage. So ecofeminists believe that all people are equal regardless of differences, and ecofeminism calls for putting an end to hierarchy, because it's only when humanity unlearns oppression and domination that it will stop destroying its only habitat. Ecofeminism looks not only at women, but also at other groups that are marginalized. And it sees that the same oppression, the same oppressive system that marginalizes these groups is the same one that is literally ruining the environment. And I'm talking about patriarchy, misogyny, and capitalism all combined into one, a system that feeds on profit and hierarchy and the oppression of the poor and the marginalized and animals. All these issues need to be viewed collectively. They're not separate. They're all interconnected. This is the main message that intersectional ecofeminists try to deliver. Everything is connected to everything else. Everyone is connected to everyone else. And it also aligns with my love of the feminist ethics of care, which sees interpersonal relationships and care as being central to moral action, and also feminist multicultural perspective, which is, I love that too. So for me, where ecofeminism intersects with veganism, it intersects in a huge way. And many feminists have said that if you call yourself a feminist and you're not vegan, you need to take a long, serious look at that, because feminists are against oppression of any kind, and that includes oppression of animals and the environment. So the egg and dairy industries focus solely on the exploitation of the female reproductive organs of animals as well. And animals want their babies, and animals want to live. And I just don't see what gives me the right to take that away from them, or away from any living creature. Every living creature on this planet communicates with its own kind and in its own way, in its own language. And just because we don't understand how other creatures communicate, then we assume that we're cleverer and more important, which is ridiculous. Like, even plants are seen to communicate to each other. Trees communicate with each other using vast stretches of mycelium. There's a great new documentary on Netflix called fungi, which explains all of this. Mushrooms, basically, through the mycelium underneath the trees, older trees actually send nutrients to young saplings to help them grow. So trees communicate with each other, plants communicate with each other, animals communicate with each other. It's not just us. We've put ourselves above everything, and we shouldn't. We're supposed to be part of everything. We're not above everything. We are part of everything. We're not above nature. We're part of nature. So everything is interconnected, and that's feminist ethics of care and multiculturalism and ecofeminism all rolled into one, and they're that's what I'm focusing on. So also you've seen all these adverts where every 2 seconds a child dies from malnutrition. Food in poorer countries is being fed to animals so that meat can be sold to the more prosperous nations. And then, madly, so-called developed nations spend huge amounts of money every year on the diet industry because their food intake is too high. It's bonkers. Like, it's in a world with limited productive land, it makes no sense whatsoever to produce meat on such a scale when the same land could feed so many more people if used to grow cereals, grains, legumes, potatoes, plants, Plus, the huge amount of animals that are raised for the meat industry are contributing to pollution and erosion of our environment, not to mention all the water that is wasted in rearing a cow from birth to death. It makes no sense at all. As a species, we've gone absolutely horribly, horribly, horribly wrong. Horribly.
Well, it certainly explains why some of us struggle with mental health challenges, doesn't it? And depression, and trying to figure out how to fit into an insane world. There's the old saying that if you fit into insanity, then that's kind of insane, right? And there's, I think COVID has, excuse me, become, it's kind of the great levelizer in a way, the great equalizer, in the sense that we are not huge, like we've been taken down by this little microbe, right? And our behavior, I think that it's the earth and the universe it's a natural response. If there's a planet that's overrun by these creatures that are just destroying it, then those creatures gotta go, right? And
we deserve it.
yeah, well, and so it's really hopefully a big wake up for people. And so I'm right there with you. And what's interesting too, have you delved into, or are you hoping to delve into some of the ancient cultures? I think you have lots of Celtic tradition there, and there's evidence, isn't there, of goddess, more egalitarian societies where the feminine was sacred and was worshipped and was revered, rather than this constant attempt to control and dominate the feminine. So there is a time before patriarchy and before hierarchy. And is that going to be part of your studies, do you think?
The master's is going to focus a lot on shamanism, and shamanism I would see as an ancient culture. There's definitely a lot of shamanism going on in Ireland right now, and Yeah, I would. I would think that it will delve into all the Celtic, the old Celtic and ancient cultures, because we can learn so much from them. Because they were, yeah, as you said, they were a lot. It was more equal, and women were revered as, I think, minders of nature, and the bringers of life, and very, very close to nature, because nature is all about rebirth cycles, and death and rebirth, and regenerating, and new plants coming up, and so women are very closely connected to that, because we give birth ourselves, and like the old Celtic traditions are absolutely beautiful. I live and was raised in Ireland, which underneath it all has a very deep, beautiful, mystical, lots of mystical ancient cultures full of prophetesses and goddesses and druids and warriors and all that kind of beautiful stuff. So I am hoping to get more and more into that. I did dive into it for when I made my last animated music video. I was certainly inspired by Celtic and ancient cultures. I ended up using loads of ancient symbols from Ireland. I used the Celtic tree of life, thought to represent the meeting of upper and lower realms of life and spirituality, of the cycles within nature. And I used also the sacred triskel symbol, which is found all over all our Irish ancient sites, and is thought to represent birth, life, and death, and the movement of energy, and the cycle of life and nature. It's always about the cycles of life and nature, and birth, and rebirth, and life and death. But I did also incorporate the yin and yang symbol, which isn't Celtic, and it's thought to be about the balance of the inner world and the outer world, and just balance in general, balance of male and female, yeah, especially. And I also did the seed of life, which is an ancient feminine symbol, and I used the ancient cave paintings from France as well, because that's our earliest record of art in as humans. So I did dive right into all the kind of Celtic and ancient cultures while I was making my last animated music video, and I was actually listening to a few really influential audiobooks while I was sitting doing all my cutting out of paper for hours and hours. And I was listening to Carl Jung talk about mandalas. Mandalas is another huge thing that I was getting into, and the collective unconscious. And I listened to a beautiful book. If you've never read it, or I mean, I couldn't read it because I was working on my stuff, so I was listening to the books. But if you want to read a beautiful book, it's called If Women Rose Rooted by Sharon Blackie. And that book, in that book, Sharon Blackie goes into all the Celtic traditions, and the old Irish culture, and the old Irish goddesses, and all the tales of the Silkies, and all that kind of beautiful, mad old Celtic stuff. And I also listened to The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, and that has a lot of ancient culture in it as well. So I think it is safe to say that I've definitely been hugely inspired by Celtic and ancient cultures, including the spiritual and philosophical beliefs in between. So yeah, the older I get, the more I feel compelled to delve into these things and connect with our ancestral knowledge. So I'd love to know more. I still feel like I'm at the beginning of my journey with all this stuff, even with the eco-feminist stuff, and I there's so much to learn. I just still feel like I don't know enough, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's beautiful, and you're dead right. All those ancient Celtic and ancestral stuff, it's women were revered, and it was more of a balance. And it has to be the patriarchy. I feel, this whole every man for themselves attitude, and this whole, like the whole point of feminism is for me is the interconnectedness, not just with each other, but with nature and with animals. And with the patriarchy, it's just like, no, every man for themselves. We all have to be autonomous. We all have to, and yeah, that's the problem. Everybody's disconnected. Everybody feels. I don't understand why people don't feel connected to nature. Now, I'm a very, very sensitive person, and maybe that's why, like, I'm a ridiculously sensitive person. I would say I'm an HSP, a highly sensitive person. So when I go out into my tiny little garden in the morning, I smell the garden just smells so sweet in the morning. It's like this beautiful sweet smell. Or if I go for a walk, and I know it sounds really hippie or whatever, but like, I love touching trees. I love the energy of trees. I love walking barefoot in the grass. I feel connected to nature, but it just doesn't seem like many people in cities, many city dwellers, feel connected to nature in the slightest. It's all concrete and it's all plastic, and we've just gone horribly, horribly wrong. And the earth is showing us that we've gone horribly, horribly wrong by trying to get us off. So if we don't learn now, there's no hope. Really, if this doesn't show everybody that we have gone horribly wrong and we need to drastically, put the brakes on and rethink the plastic thing and rethink all the terrible things, the bulldozing into the rainforest, cutting down all our trees. We're cutting down the lungs of the planet, how we breathe. We're like consciously destroying that. I mean, it makes no sense. And I am a feminist. I do believe that I really, really do believe that the white man has it's no, we need to stop that right now. We need to stop it right now.
Yeah, we're going through an interesting time here in Canada with the discovery of the unmarked graves.
Okay.
You've heard about that? So have you heard about that?
No, we've had similar things here in Ireland, but
there's so much going on, right? So for generations, really, the First Nations people have been talking among themselves and trying to raise awareness about missing people. Missing and murdered Indigenous women is an ongoing thing in this country. And there's racism, and this land was colonized by white Europeans, and the First Nations people were put onto reservations. And as that was happening, a lot of the children were taken. The children were just taken and put into residential schools, what they called residential schools, and where terrible things happened. Those were run by the church and the government, and I think the RCMP was involved. So recent discovery of thousands. I think we're over 1,000 now. They have some way of looking at the earth using some kind of laser technology and seeing what's underneath it, so they don't have to dig it up. Unmarked graves, like near these residential schools. 400 here, another 100 there, all across the country.
Yeah. We've had similar things here.
So just to finish with that, sorry, just because my point being, we're going through this amazing awakening. I mean, and the racism continues and it bubbles to the surface at times like this, but also this wave of like sympathy and understanding, right? Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm being a sensitive person too, and I think it's a real awakening of, because those folks have been just shoved aside, but they're our ancient culture link in this part of the world. We don't have the ancient buildings and the temples and the mounds and Stonehenge. We don't have any of that, but we have a link and a connection to the First Peoples, and who have stories that's their lineages, their stories, and their way of being. I mean, I'm generalizing, of course, every culture was different across the country, but the common thread is this understanding of our interconnectedness with the earth and the need to be in that relationship just for survival purposes, right? So yeah, it's a real time of awakening. And the other thing I just want to say too, sorry to take your time, I'll edit this out so it's more you and then me. But you're so interesting. I'm sure you'd be interested in this. And that COVID has, we can't go to the malls and the restaurants, right, during, especially last year. So people are out in nature, and we have a lot of nature still in Canada, although it's being destroyed for profit. But people are out in droves at the beaches and, I mean, the forests, the parks, there's more people out than I've ever witnessed. And I think there's some hope there that because of not being able to gather in groups and being safer outdoors, that people are finding that reconnection. And then now with this First Nations awareness, I get the sense that maybe there's some hope in a return to different values than just make money, buy things, and die.
I really hope so myself. I really hope so, because I felt the same. I felt like, oh God, what we've gone, we've gone so wrong, and it's, yeah, and I'm really, really hoping that that people are reconnecting with nature and are thinking now that it's not just all about consuming, and that's the patriarchy again. Consume, consume, consume. All we are as consumers, we're not. That's not all we are. We are beautiful hearts and minds and spirits, and we are here interconnected with everything, not apart, not above, interconnected with everything. And actually, if we lived in harmony with the planet, it could be such a beautiful place. One of my all-time heroes is Dr. Vandana Shiva. I don't know if you know. I love her. I love her. And she has been a seed activist and an activist against the privatization of water in India, and doing so much. But she says that all the time. What we need now is not globalization, it's localization, where we all go back to having small communities where we grow the food. We don't import we don't import oranges from Spain. We live in Ireland. I live in Ireland. We'll eat potatoes and turnips and pumpkins, and it's this whole, I just want it, but I just want a fig, but I just want a nectarine right now. And so what Vandana Shiva is hoping for is like more people eating seasonally of what grows in their country, in their locality, and going back to everybody helping each other, and community. So globalization is the wrong direction, absolutely the wrong direction. I've actually started, one of my friends here is, her name is Helena Walsh. She's an amazing woman, and she's an organic farmer. She has, her and her partner, Derek, have a farm called Greenfields Farm. And I've started going there every Wednesday to help out on the farm. And she's teaching me how to forage, and she's teaching me how to grow my own food. And we talk, for hours about all this stuff, and about how we're going to change it. And actually we're hoping to set up women's circles and women's retreats with a mixture of attending to the land and eating the food that we've grown, and music therapy, and just do these kind of consciousness raising women's groups, because I think the women really need to rise up now. I think we really need to put a stop to this. It's gone crazy. We're being governed by a bunch of psychopaths. We really are. So
yeah, we are. They don't care. And and just another thing that came to mind with the First Nations, we're, as I mentioned, they've been talking about all of this for their whole lives. This is their culture, but they've just been so oppressed but now I really feel there's a shift. And one thing, there's some radio programs now at CFUV by Indigenous people for Indigenous knowledge. And I heard somebody mention the other day that if we didn't have any pronouns in our traditional culture. So I forget what her point was. It was something about how, because they have to sort of integrate, to survive, and they've adopted some of these European ways, and some of them are okay, but some of them are like, why are we doing this? We have no pronouns. I can't remember what the example was, but I thought, well, isn't that interesting? If there's this ancient culture, maybe other ancient cultures were like that, where we didn't have this strict male-female divide. And these are your jobs because you're the female. Oh, I think that's what she was talking about. Or, I think that's what it was, that why should I have to do this job because I'm a woman when in my traditional culture we didn't have pronouns. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn and think about, and hopefully we'll have, we'll get past this and on a different course so that we can actually live here and learn more about these things. Can you sing us a song?
Yeah, I can.
And because I think the video that you were talking about is Last Life. Is that what you were talking about with the artwork?
Yeah.
So I'll play Last Life off of your recorded works at the very end, and and you can introduce that again. But do you have a song that you could introduce now?
Yeah. I have 3 solo albums out. So this is going to be one off the first album I put out there 10 years ago. So I released it in 2010 is when I released this album. And this is called In Between Dreams. Broken and cold, waiting at the bus stop, getting old. Christmas lights have increased tenfold. Well, I'm banking on Thursday's dole. There's an early morning woman drinking vodka neat. There's a man stood preaching on Patrick Street, and all I can say is I'm somewhere in between dreams. Through the swings and roundabouts, between the bank and the playground, is where I should be lost and found, making all these funny sounds. There's a game of chess along with every scene. There are moves to prove the difference between pawn and queen. And all I can say is I'm somewhere in between dreams. Won't you come and talk to me, my love? You know who you are, and these days I'm above playing the fool with both act too cool. There's an early morning woman drinking vodka neat. There's a man stood preaching on Patrick Street. And all I can say is I'm somewhere in between dreams, in between dreams.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So 10 years ago. Wow. How long have you been making music, Siân?
I wrote my first song in my diary when I was 7.
And what was it about?
It was really ridiculously cheesy. It was all about these imaginary boyfriends. I wrote it with my sister in mind. So I wrote it and me and my sister would sing it. And it was, the men in our lives. There was no men in our lives.
Well, you're 7?
Pretending that we had these boyfriends that would take us dancing, and
fun.
Silly, but yeah, I started pretty young. I always wrote a lot in my diaries. So.
And is your sister a musician as well?
No. My older brother used to play the guitar a lot, but he doesn't play too much anymore. He still plays, but he doesn't play too much anymore. And my dad used to play blues guitar, and that was it really. So I'm the only one that really took to music in my family. Nobody else is actively doing any at the moment. So.
But they supported you, I guess, in your quest.
Yeah, they do now. In the beginning, when I was learning the guitar and I sounded terrible, they were like, stop. But no, they do. They do support what I do. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, you gotta love your kids a lot to put an instrument in their hands. That's for sure. Especially like drums or a violin. I think that would be a challenge. Yeah. All right. And so I think I heard you in one of your interviews, you mentioned that you taught yourself.
Yeah, so when I was about 7 or 8, around that age, I did ask my mother to teach me how to play one song. It was Train Whistle Blowing. I can't even remember who it's by, but I learned that song so that I could sing it and play it for an end of term thing in school. And then I really didn't pick up the guitar again until I was a teenager. And because there were guitars in the house, I started teaching myself. I was into grunge. I was into Nirvana and Soundgarden and Nine Inch Nails and all those kind of bands. So I really, really, really wanted to learn those songs on the guitar. And a friend of mine at school taught me how to read tab. And tab is just like music by numbers. By the numbers, it just tells you where to put your fingers on the fretboard. So once I knew tab, that was it. I just used to get the tab for all my favorite songs and learn them. And that's how I taught myself the guitar. Yeah.
Grunge is very different from what we just heard, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you play in a band at all?
No, I was always really shy. And also I grew up in the middle of nowhere. Like I live in Cork City now. And Cork City even isn't a huge city or anything. But when I grew up, I grew up in rural countryside. So there wasn't really an opportunity for me to be in bands when I was a teenager or anything like that. And, we were miles from anywhere. So if I wanted to meet up with anybody, it was a big deal because I had to get a lift and all that kind of stuff. And then when I got to Cork City, I tried to kind of say to people that I was a singer and I wrote stuff, but nobody gave me a chance. So that is why I just always ended up just me and the guitar in my bedroom writing songs. And I was just really socially awkward. I'm a socially awkward person. And I'm not good at small talk at all, in the slightest. So that's always been a huge barrier between me, and I find it very hard to go into groups of people and not feel socially awkward and know what to say and everything. So it's just always been like the easiest option, just me and a guitar. I don't have to depend on anybody else. So that's how that happened, really. But I when I met my husband and we formed the electro band, that's been really good fun. So we're probably going to do a bit more of that as well. But
And what's that?
so my husband is an electro producer, and he writes electro music, and then us together, I write lyrics and the melody over his tunes that he's made, and then we perform them together. And that was great because I ended up putting on, wigs and different costumes, and because it was electro punk, I could be a bit more out there and a bit more. I love dancing, so I'd be running around the stage and dancing and singing.
Cool. And then you're sort of in a different persona, so
Yeah,
express
exactly.
that. That sounds wonderful. All right, let's talk a little bit about music therapy. What is it, and how does it work, and how does it help people?
Music therapy is beautiful. It's using music as a therapeutic tool of change. So instead of the talking therapies, you go through music, and there are some populations that talking therapy just wouldn't work on. So say children with ASD, adults with intellectual disabilities, all these types of populations, any nonverbal person, music just is able to weave itself in there and touch the heart and the soul of somebody who wouldn't necessarily be able to communicate with you at all properly. So that's the beauty of music therapy. But you can definitely do a version of talking therapy with songwriting with people, where songwriting is really, really good for working with teenagers. So therapeutic songwriting is where you would sit down with somebody, a teenager, or anybody who wants to do that kind of therapy, and write songs with them about their life, and it helps them to get their feelings out, and it helps them to understand their feelings, and it's a form of artistic expression. It's very therapeutic on many different levels. But the way that music therapy works with children with ASD is that you would have what's called a hello and goodbye song. So at the beginning of a session, you would sing a hello song specific to the child that you're seeing. So let's just say you're seeing a child called Billy, and he's 7 and he has ASD and he's nonverbal. You sing, hello, Billy, it's nice to see you today. You have a red jacket on, you've got blue shoes, and you just then kind of narrate through song what they're doing, and then also bring in their favorite children's songs. So they would always have their favorites, like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or The Wheels on the Bus. So you use these favorite children's songs, but also every now and again putting in things specific to Billy. So you do a whole verse of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and then you might sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Billy, oh, you're acting so silly, and just joke with it. And it's a way of connecting with them that works so much better than trying to sit down and talk to them. And they often, like I saw a nonverbal, an adult with intellectual disabilities for a long time, and it was very hard to connect with him, but he really, really loved music, and he would connect with you. And after a few months of seeing him, he would actually start vocalizing with you, which is huge because that was conversation. So I would sing and he would kind of do these vocalizations back, which meant that you were definitely connecting with him, and he was present with you, and he was enjoying it so much that he wanted to join in with you. And that's huge for somebody who can't connect to people, really. That's a huge that's a huge thing, and it's all about quality of life. So when you're working with these severely disabled people or people very high on the autistic spectrum, it's quality of life that you're looking for more than anything. You can't really fix anybody, but it's more quality of life and being present and having connection, interconnectedness, like we were just talking about. So music therapy is absolutely beautiful. There's been, it's evidence-based, and there are many papers and books written about music therapy, and it's just a really beautiful therapy. And I know that for myself, music has always been my number one therapy. I've had a strange life, and my father was an alcoholic and all this kind of stuff. So music for me, the writing of songs, the starting of writing songs was me using music as my own therapy for way back. Mm-hmm. So, and even, when you're sad, you listen to songs. When you break up with somebody, you listen to songs. When you're happy, music is all around us. Music is really food for the soul, and music therapy is a really beautiful therapy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I hope that explains it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I realized that I participated in it, and I never really thought it. I mean, I knew it was therapeutic, but I never realized there's a whole school of knowledge around it. I worked with developmentally disabled adults for a while, and on Fridays there was a wonderful music program in a church, and these lovely musicians would volunteer their time, or they might have got paid a little bit actually, which is good. Musicians need to get paid. And there was a piano player and a bass guitar and a drummer and a lead guitar, and they were all professional musicians, but they gave their time to this project every Friday. And the guy, Avram, the lead guitar guy, he knew all these favorite songs that you mentioned, and John Denver songs, and Shania Twain songs, and all these popular songs. And we would go to the church. It was the greatest thing, and we would load up the wheelchair van and take these guys in, and there would be I don't know how many. I think we probably overloaded the fire capacity for sure, the safety. All these people, but they wouldn't just sit and listen to music like we would politely, listening and applauding. These guys were on the stage. They took turns to sing their favorite songs, and Avram would set them up, and they'd sing like people who would never talk to you necessarily, or oh my gosh, it was just amazing. And they'd be rocking in their wheelchairs, and it was the most amazing thing. It concerns me, since COVID, I wonder how are they managing, because that was such a huge part of their day, and so perhaps they're getting back to that now. But yeah, I hear you. Music is such an important thing, isn't it? Yeah.
I really think that it's an innate part of being human. Music, it's just such a beautiful, for me, spiritual type of a thing. It really touches your soul, like just one line. It could be one line, but if you relate to it in any way, it's like, it's really there. It's like, I hear that. Music is really beautiful. And we did, a friend of mine, another music therapist, we did music groups with elderly with dementia. And that was amazing. Like you should read papers on how music helps with people with dementia.
And my dad was in a situation where he just became alive again when the music happened in his care home. Yeah,
that's it. And we were going to this care home every Friday, and we came in one week, and the nurses of the care home came up and said, "Oh, such and such asked was it the Music Women Day today?" And we just said, "Oh yeah, cool, we love him." And they were like, "No, you don't understand. He's got terrible dementia. He can't even remember how to open a door, and he remembered that today was the day that you were coming to the music." Wow. And that blew our minds. That was just amazing. Yeah. So
yeah, my dad used to he remembered lyrics. Towards the end, he couldn't remember what day it was or what was going on, but he would go to the music group and sing songs from his childhood. That it's a long way to Tipperary. They were British,
Yeah.
right? So they had all those old songs, and they'd bring in these wonderful music people, and yeah, it made their day. And so, are you still doing that kind of work, or are you, I guess, more solo projects now? Hey.
Yeah, when the pandemic hit, all my work literally went because I was going into hospitals and care homes,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and really, it's only last week that even live music was allowed outside again.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so so I lost all my work. So at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm doing a solo music therapy project with a dear friend of mine, Sister Mary Carmel. She's an 85-year-old nun, and she's been working. She set up this charity called Phoenix Creative Psychotherapy Center, and she's been working tirelessly with marginalized children for her whole life. So what I'm doing with her is, we've done it. We've written 12 songs documenting her early life, going into being training to be a sister, and coming back to Ireland, and then all her charity work. And we're releasing that soon. And
Wow.
then that hopefully it's meant to be a charity fundraiser for her charity, Phoenix Creative Psychotherapy Center, which brings creative arts therapies to the children, to the disadvantaged children in the area of Limerick. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. And I've also been taken on as Phoenix's official fundraiser. So I'm really hoping that I can do a good job there. And I'm probably going to have maybe one or two children on the autistic spectrum clients from September onwards. So yeah, all the group stuff is gone for the moment until we figure all that out. But I'm trying to get back up and running and trying to earn a bit of money while I start my masters and stuff, because
Right.
yeah.
Well, what a wonderful project for a lifetime of work. Hey, it's really wonderful to be able to honor that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I feel
so,
privileged, yeah.
so go ahead.
I feel privileged to be able to do that for her, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So we're kind of running out of time. I'd hoped we'd get another song in, and maybe we can. But I also want to make sure that we talk about your last life video. Is incredible, and I can imagine you said you worked on it for 6 months.
Yeah, the best part of 6 months, yeah.
Wow. So what is that about last life? Oh, and before we get to that, I was thinking when you were talking about how a line of music even can spark something in us. Somebody said the other day, I forget what I was listening to, but it was a songwriter, and they were speaking about how, when you write a song, it's very personal and it's coming from you, but everybody who hears it thinks it's all about them, right? Like we can
Yeah.
all take that music and go, "Oh, this is so meaningful to me," and it might have completely different meaning from what was intended by the writer, but there's something so universal about it that it sparks something in each of us that might be completely different. I never really thought about it that way. So what is last life? Is that like last life of the planet, or last life of what is this all about?
Um, well, yeah, it's on the whole, it's about my last life on the planet. So I mean, it's definitely like the line, "When I finally leave this place, I won't be coming back." Um, there's definitely elements of that relating to where I live, because yeah, it's been an up and down road here as a female musician. Female musicians in Ireland, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to be a successful original female musician in Ireland. The radio hardly plays any original female music, so there's an element of it being of, when I finally leave this place, the place where I'm living, but also I'm talking about my whole entire life as Sian, as this human Sian. Because one day when I was sitting with my hang drum in my bedroom, being so fed up of constantly producing art and constantly, really working at my craft and getting better every time and putting all my heart and soul into everything, just for, people in my area to just turn around and not either ignore me completely or tell me I'm nobody special,
Wow.
So I was really, really upset about that. And then I was thinking about my whole entire life. And it's been a journey, it's been a real journey, what with my whole childhood being taken up with my alcoholic father, and then having having my own drink problem by the time I left home, and then trying to give up drink and having a nervous breakdown during my 20s that took up basically my whole 20s. And it's just been and then thinking the way I do about how the planet is being destroyed and we're hurting everything beautiful. We're hurting everything beautiful. So I suppose I was just in that mood, like thinking about reincarnation. Like it's, when you look at nature and the cyclical nature of nature, it's very probable that we're probably recycled back. And then when I thought, well, that's a very probable thing, I just thought, no, I can't do another life here. I'm sorry. I don't even know what I'm doing here in the first place. I please don't. I don't, I could be a little, piece of fluff in the other end of the cosmos. I'm not sure I want to come back and be a person here because I'm so sensitive, so ridiculously sensitive, and it's very hard and it can be very painful and people can be very harsh. And I just thought that it was just that thought of the night when I was in my bedroom and I was feeling really low. I was just like, when I leave, I do not want to come back. I just, please God, or whatever, universe, or whatever it is, because there's definitely something, please don't put me back here. So I know it's a bit depressing, but that was my thought.
No, I have those exact thoughts, and I like to believe that there's life on other planets that is much more reasonable than what's going on here.
Yeah.
And that one day when I leave this planet with my resume, I was vegan and I tried my best and I'm trying to be kind, and I made some stupid mistakes along the way, but I learned, and please can I come and live here instead?
Yeah.
I like to believe that there might be somewhere that would take me. But of course, part of us will stay. Our bodies, the memory that's in our bodies and our DNA will stay. But I hear ya. Like, if we don't get a grip on what's going on here, it's nowhere I want to come back to for sure. Yeah, so that's what this is about. Okay, I'll have to watch it again. Because, just the video is absolutely stunning. And so you cut out all those individual pieces? Wow. Did you teach yourself how to do that?
Yeah.
Wow.
What I did was I for a video that I did before this video, I did a shadow puppet video.
Right, yeah.
And then I got really into the whole art of paper cutting thing. And I watched a couple of documentaries. And I watched this amazing documentary on this amazing woman, Lotte Reniger, who was German back in the 1940s, I think. And she was the one that used to animate on a light box. And so I was like, that's amazing. Because when I did the shadow puppets, I had to be crouched underneath doing all the shadow puppets, and it was really hard. I couldn't see what I was doing and it was very difficult. But then I thought, if it's a light pad, it's just lying flat and I don't, I can just do the stop motion thing and move it bit by bit. So cool. That was a great kind of a realization. So it was that documentary, and then discovering a woman called Beatrice Caron, a French master paper cutter who just does amazing stuff in paper cutting. She makes these dresses and she does these amazing cityscapes, like such intricate, mad cityscapes of paper cutting. So between Lotte Reniger and Beatrice Caron, two amazing women, that's how I started developing this. And yeah, I taught myself, but it's certainly not my idea or anything, but I taught myself how to do it. Yeah.
Wow, it's incredible. I would invite our listeners to go to YouTube and find you, and it's Siân Brown. It's Sian Brown. And your music as well is just so soothing and lovely. For my radio audience, I'm going to play Last Life. I'm going to say goodbye and play Last Life. And thank you so much. It's just been lovely to meet you.
You too. Thanks. And thanks for being interested in my stuff. And it's been lovely to talk to you as well. Like-minded. Yeah.
Yeah, right. We'll have to stay in contact. And but I wonder, for the YouTube audience, would you play another song?
Yeah, if you time.
I have time. Do you have time?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What's this one?
So this is off my latest album, And She Was, which was released just before Christmas, and it's up on Spotify and iTunes and Apple and all that kind of stuff. This is a song called Woman Now, and it's just about the pressures that women feel to follow a certain path. Yeah, so that's what it's about. There's a clock on a chain around my neck. I've been too busy. I've had no time to check, but the people, they've been talking, whispering and pointing. The magazines and TV screens have all been trying to warn me. If I'm not careful, I'll miss my window. Then all I'll have around me are the ones who told me so. But I'm not ready. Maybe I'll never be that kind of fruit tree. I feel the pressure of the people. They tell me that I'd be too tired to evermore. My freedom, thoughts of touring will fade away. Like the rest, I'll be the best at coping day to day. They say that music never pays. Find a job, buy a house, put those dreams away. You can keep it if you teach it to all the ones who are still young with plenty time to play. I'm a woman now. Talk is cheap, time to settle down. Only dream when I sleep, no more running my mouth about seeing the world. I'm a woman now, not a girl. We're the only ones who live life this way, obsessed with age and stage, counting down the days. I want to be free to follow my dreams for as long as it takes. But I'm a woman now. Talk is cheap, time to settle down. Only dream when I sleep, no more running my mouth about seeing the world. I'm a woman now, not a girl. I'm a woman now. Talk is cheap, time to settle down. Only dream when I sleep, no more running my mouth about seeing the world. I'm a woman now, not a girl, not a girl.
Well, I don't understand why Sinead O'Connor is the only woman artist we know from Ireland. Siân, we should definitely know about Siân Brown. Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. And I made a note, I want to connect you up with my friend Fireweed. She's a vegan eco-feminist. who lives in a rural community on an island near here, and she's very lovely. I think you'd really like her. She has a Facebook group called The Elephant in the Room is a Cow, and she started it several years ago, and it's all focused on environmental reports and articles, news media about environment, animal agriculture, impact on environment. So it's this massive resource of just studies and news articles. And so if you ever in a conversation with someone and you're like, wait a minute, let me just send you this, and you're like, where can I get an article? It's a really great
That sounds amazing. Yeah. I want to. Yeah.
Are there other ecofeminists that in Ireland that you know of? Or like you have a couple of people that sounds like in your circle?
Oh, I'm sure there are many. I'm just on the very beginning of my
Okay.
journey. So
Great.
I know that, yeah, I'm sure there are. Irish women are great, Irish women are really great. So I'm not sure. I know that the book that I was telling you about, If Women Rose Rooted, was written. I know it was written by a UK woman, but she's living in Ireland, and there's lots of ecofeminism stuff in that book as well.
Cool.
I'm sure there are many ecofeminists in Ireland. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm just at the very beginning of my journey.
Have you read The Chalice and the Blade?
No.
Oh, it's a really good book. It's written by a woman named Rianne Eisner. I think she's American, but it's about the chalice is the patriarchy, the dominator culture, she calls it. Oh no, the chalice is the feminine, sorry. The chalice is the feminine, and the blade is the dominator culture. So it's a real historic look at how these goddess cultures were wiped out basically by these roving bands of marauding imperialists. And yeah, so if women were rooted, if women rose rooted. Oh well, you've sparked this in me. I sort of haven't focused on the ecofeminism part of myself for a while, so thank you. We've kind of reawakened that. That's lovely.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just to finish on that, I heard of it's Polly something, I can't remember, some solicitor or some lawyer who's working on this thing called ecocide, and trying to get laws against ecocide, and that's a woman as well. So yeah,
That's cool. You know, the Bolivian government with Evo Morales, he's an indigenous leader. He's from the indigenous culture, and they've tried to get rid of him and smear him and stuff. But when he was the leader, they implemented the Rights of Nature document. Are you aware of that?
No, but that sounds like what she's doing as well. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, cool. Yeah, we need to do that. And rights of animals as well.
Yeah. Because we're not the top. It doesn't belong to us. It doesn't belong to us.
You know, I was speaking with Salish Rao. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's doing a Vegan World 2026 project. He was one of the people who helped build the internet, basically. And then he made some money, and he could have made more, but he wanted to focus on changing the world to vegan instead. So he retired, and that's his project now. He's a lovely man, Indian originally. And he sort of, a spark went off when he mentioned about how originally the humans were predators. We were the ultimate predator, or sorry, prey. We were the ultimate prey, right? We had no defenses. I mean, we can't kill anything. So we had to be super smart and careful and cautious. And then now we've become the ultimate predator. You know, I think there's something to that. I think there's something wacky in our wiring, that there's this way deep fear of being the prey. So the response is now we're this crazy predator.
Yeah, an overcorrection. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish you really good luck with your course. When does it start? Soon.
Mid-September.
Wow. And do you have to go somewhere for that?
No, it's entirely online. I'm very lucky. Yeah, it's entirely online. Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. And you said that's going to kind of be your focus for the next while then, hey?
Yeah, I'm going to put, I mean, Masters of Science in consciousness, spirituality, and transpersonal psychology. So I'm putting everything I have into that. This is all about my own spiritual development, delving into consciousness, and also there are modules that I'm going to take, transpersonal eco-psychology, and I'm gonna just really literally bury my head in the books for the next 3 years, because it is all counts towards what I really, really feel needs to change and needs to happen with this, so.
Cool. And where's that being offered?
It's being offered by Aleph Trust, and it operates out of the Liverpool University in the UK.
Oh,
So
wow.
I can send you the link, but it's Aleph Trust, Liverpool University, and it's a Masters of Science in Consciousness, Spirituality, and Transpersonal Psychology.
Yeah, I'm going to investigate that. That sounds.
And you can do it because it's entirely online, so you could do it anywhere in the world.
It's a master, so you just need a BA to qualify for it?
A degree, or I already had a Master of Arts in Music Therapy, so that was handy. But I'm sure that there are special cases where if you're a mature student, you could maybe, if you have the right life experience or something, you could go for it maybe without a degree.
I have a BA in English and teachers BA in education as well, so that
would be perfect. Yeah.
I'm going to investigate that. Thank you. So great to meet you. Thank you. You've made my day for sure.
Oh, you too. Thank you. Yeah, it's always good to talk to like-minded women, isn't it?